we received a phone call from a citizen and had discovered what they believed to be human remains.
Good Dark Knight gang in this thing, gang. I'm Neptune, aka Brennan Rashad. Today I'm about to react. Excuse me. Today I'm about to react to a video from Anna Solves. Anna, I love your YouTube channel. This one right here is titled "The Parents Who Hired a Hitman to Murder Their 16-Year-Old Girl." Sounds like something I would do if my 16-year-old daughter was being a creep as well. Nah, man, let me stop playing around. This is about to be crazy. Parents hired a hitman to kill their 16-year-old daughter. Bro, you couldn't just send her away to boarding school? I'm ready to hop into this video. Hopefully this video is interesting. Yeah, everybody have a great day. Shout out to the gang. Let's go.
There are some mysteries where the answer is so shocking.
Oh, they black
you
too?
wish you
Dang.
didn't know the truth.
Nah, let me stop.
And that's going to be especially true in this case of a teenager who disappeared in Augusta, Georgia. I'm afraid that in this one, the truth behind what happened is truly horrifying.
Really? He messed with all this prettiness and he's gonna run away with our daughter? Come on now, that's stupid.
So hold on tight, okay? Here we go. LaTanya Janelle Carwell, usually well known as Janelle, was a teenager with a bright future ahead of her. She was an honor student at T.W. Josie Comprehensive High School and won lots of achievement awards. Her pastor described her like this.
Janelle was a loving, very intelligent, smart young woman who wanted to be a doctor, who was an honor student.
Basically, she had an awful lot going for her, which makes what happens to her next seem even more insane. She lived in Richmond County, Augusta, Georgia, with her family. This was her little sister, her mom, Tanya Tripp, and her stepfather, Leon Tripp. Now, the night of April 17th, 2017 was her 16th birthday, and also Easter Sunday. She had a pretty big day. After they had enjoyed a cookout party at their home with friends and neighbors, her mom went to bed early and left Janelle and Leon to finish celebrating. At least, this is what Janelle's mom told the police had happened on that night. Tanya went to bed and was woken by Leon at about midnight. He asked if he could borrow her phone to look up something. A friend of his, Maurice, needed a lift because his car had broken down. Not thinking anything of it, she gave Leon her phone. But because he wasn't great at using the map on the phone, he wanted Janelle to go with him to help him with the directions to Clarksville, South Carolina. Now, that's kind of a weird thing to take a kid to do that at that time of night.
That is weird, but she's 16 and he's like, I don't know how to use your phone. Just come with me. I probably would have fell for that too. Right?
And Leon took Tanya's phone with him because apparently he didn't have access to the directions.
Yeah, see?
Like, okay, maybe it wasn't a smartphone, or he didn't know about an app store. Well, it all sounds pretty strange to me. Anyway, things quickly became worse. Tanya didn't hear from Leon or her daughter again for the whole next day. Neither of them had returned from their late night mission, and their phones weren't ever answered again. So Janelle's mom made a panicked call to the police to report that they were missing. This is the 911 call she made.
It's not like they're not to answer the phone. I've been calling and texting and leaving messages and nothing.
Don't you think she sounds totally scared here and that the worst might have happened to them? Tanya was so sure that if they'd seen her phone calls, they would have picked up. So, of course, this huge search started for them both. The cops, and especially the local community, got really involved. Everybody wanted to find the missing teenager. The frantic search carried on for the next 2 weeks. A local pastor who had a radio show got involved with raising awareness about the case, and Janelle's mom appeared on Facebook Live streaming event. She told watchers that she had brain and lung cancer. That makes all of this even sadder, right?
Need my baby home like 15 days ago type home, because she has never been away from me this long.
But by late April 2017, law enforcement had finally found Leon's car. His white pickup truck was spotted about a mile from their home. The cops searched it for any signs of a struggle or DNA that could prove the worst, but nothing turned up there. I guess that's a good thing, but really frustrating.
Okay, so she's been gone for about 2 weeks. Nobody knows what's going on. They found the homie's car only like a mile away. Why did it take 15 days just to find a car? That's kind of weird, but let's keep going.
So the cops
Especially
checked
it's only
their
a
cell phone
mile,
records.
but alright.
What they found suggested Janelle and Leon hadn't been anywhere near the Clarksville area, where the friend had apparently broken down. And even worse,
This dude, Leon,
Janelle's
a creep.
social media channels had gone completely silent. For a popular teenager like her to switch off, yeah, this fact made the cops and everyone who cared for her super worried. Reports had finally started coming in about a sighting, and guess who it was?
That nigga Leon.
It was Leon Tripp.
I told
He'd
you.
been seen all on his own somewhere in Atlanta. But sadly, there was no sign of Janelle with him. The police realized they had to dig into Leon's past. They didn't have to look very far because it turned out he had a super dark criminal history.
He had some assault charges. He had some cruelty to children charges.
Cruelty to children charges, and the mom was dealing with this dude. Well, I'm sure this dude didn't. You know what I'm saying? He didn't disclose all this information to the mom. Like, hey, you know, I used to be in jail and I hate kids.
He'd even been in
But this is why you got to know who you work. I was about to say, this is why you got to know who you're working with. I mean, dealing with.
jail for aggravated assault. And Janelle's mom knew all about this.
Oh, she
In fact,
knew.
they'd both gone to high school together. And after Leon was put
Oh,
away for a few
shit.
years, they'd somehow grown even closer, exchanging letters and phone calls.
Ah,
Very
shit.
romantic. Leon and Tanya had even married while he was still
Ah,
locked up.
she's
But it
one of
seems
those.
Like Janelle's mom really didn't mind any of his super sketchy past. Once he was released, as I mentioned earlier, he moved into the same house with her and her two
Ah.
daughters. This was in 2015, 2 years before Janelle vanished with him. I mean, that background is totally not a great look for Tanya or Leon.
Nah, it's not.
And this time, the cops were after him for abduction charges. They were pretty sure he'd done something to his stepdaughter.
Yeah, I would
But
think so,
Janelle's
too.
mom really didn't want to believe this. One reporter even noticed how little she wanted to hear it.
When I asked her, hey, investigators believe that he's taken her, she was very defensive.
Of course.
And the lady who ran
Of course she gonna get defensive. She thinks that's her man. No, my man would never do that. He waited for me while he was in prison getting his booty banged out.
Bring Our Missing Home, Kathy Rhodes, agrees that Tanya's actions were getting sketchier. Kathy had worked really close to Tanya the whole time they were trying to find Janelle. She couldn't help noticing that the number of red flags kept increasing. Too much just didn't add up. Following the suspicion that Leon might have abducted her daughter, Tanya had said in one interview,
Really? He messed with all this prettiness and he's gonna run away with our daughter? Come on now, that's stupid.
"It's definitely kind of an odd thing to say, isn't it?" By now, the people who were working on the case were in close touch with Tanya, and they were starting to really get anxious about her motives. And the signs of Tanya's possible jealousy of her daughter really didn't stop there. She also said,
And all this craziness about they ran off to be together and stuff, no, it's no truth in none of that. That's her dad, that's his daughter, that's it. I'm his wife, not her. So all that craziness, it's no happening to that.
by this point, Tanya was
She started to get jealous of the daughter. Maybe that dude and the daughter did have like a little relationship. What if the dude was taking advantage of that young girl? That young girl only 16 years old. She don't know what she's doing. So this grown man gaming her up. Yeah, baby, when you get older, yo, mama, it's gonna be me and you. Let's just watch.
even accusing law enforcement of only coming after her and not doing enough to find her daughter. But the police had finally tracked him down. A call came through that Leon had been discovered. He was at a U-Haul depot in Atlanta. This should
Where this
be
nigga moving?
good news, right? But guess who is right there with him?
Not the chick.
You're not gonna believe it, or maybe you will. When the cops arrived at the U-Haul to arrest Leon, Tanya Tripp was right there with him. That's pretty hard evidence that something was messed up about the whole situation. What were they both hiding about Janelle? The cops were now absolutely sure that Tanya had known much more about her daughter's disappearance the entire time. But she insisted she'd only seen Leon by complete accident. Tanya claimed that she was being evicted and had begun to move to Atlanta. Then she spotted Leon walking along the road while she was driving the U-Haul back to the depot, and that's why they were together. Totally believable. Right. Tanya really tried to sell that story, but yeah, that's all about as sus as it sounds. Nobody was buying it. I mean, seeing him out there by accident has got to be 1,000,000,000 to 1 shot.
And if you see that dude by accident, I would be like, where the my daughter at? What the Not, oh, okay, yeah, let's move together.
Totally unlikely, and the cops thought so too. They immediately charged Leon with abduction, and Tanya was hit with hindering the apprehension of a criminal. Tanya called a neighbor from jail to let her know. The neighbor said,
"Are you serious?" And she said yes.
It was starting to dawn on everyone just how much they'd been lied to. Given how hard the community worked to find Janelle, this must have hurt so much. And this began to crack the story that Tanya had been telling into lots of totally inconsistent pieces. Once Tanya was arrested, she kept telling the cops slightly different versions of her story. And Leon told a totally different story to that. Leon insisted that he and Janelle were going to Atlanta all along. Investigator Richard Roundtree reported that Leon claimed
Gave her some money in which to get on the bus and come back to Augusta, and he hadn't seen her since.
Obviously, this wasn't true and she never made it. But when confronted, Tanya suddenly stopped answering further questions and the cops couldn't get her to respond to any details of this other story. Perhaps because it wasn't rehearsed with Leon?
Yeah.
The cops also closely examined that 911 call Tanya had made. They soon figured out it was all a massive lie and figured she had used it to send the search teams in the completely wrong direction. This would have bought Leon a lot more time to do whatever the heck he was doing. It was all a big act to cover up something terrible that she knew. So both parents were arrested and charged. Leon had also submitted a statement saying that Janelle was no longer living. All the cops could do now was carry on looking for poor Janelle's remains, but they still don't know where she was. And don't forget that Janelle had a little sister. I can't imagine how she was coping with all of this. And as far as I know, she's still with an aunt, where I hope she's in much safer hands. And then, almost 1 year after Janelle had vanished on the Easter weekend, the cops released a very sad statement.
We received a phone call from a citizen and had discovered what they believed to be human remains.
This came from a person in Augusta, not all that far from where Janelle lived. They'd found something suspicious and upsetting in the garden of the house they were about to rent, and naturally, they called the police. The area was searched and the sad truth was confirmed. Investigators confirmed that this was what remained of Janelle. She was identified by some dental records taken just before her birthday. And finally, Leon and Tanya were fully charged for the horrible things they'd done. They've both been charged for involvement and in concealment of whatever happened to Janelle. In fact, the reason why they did something so disgusting still isn't clear. Oh, and as for Janelle's so-called parents, Leon is facing the death penalty. And Tanya Tripp is charged with murder in the 2nd degree. But the dates of a full hearing kept getting pushed back, so we'll see what eventually happens to both of them. But I really hope that poor Janelle receives some justice.
They need to die.
She could have really been something amazing, and she was always amazing to begin with. So
this was a crazy video. Why would you kill your own 16-year-old daughter? Doesn't make sense to me. I really don't understand. If you're that tired of her, if you hate her, send her off somewhere. Send her to boarding school. Say, I'm not your mother anymore. You're going to an orphanage. But to end her life, insane. But that is why justice will be served. Hopefully their lives come to an end. And if their lives don't come to an end, hopefully they can live out the rest of their lives in prison. I would prefer if they both died. Shout out to the gang. Everybody have a great day. I'm going to see y'all next time. Peace.